Okay, we'll start with this. So this weekend's fight between Amanda Serrano and Heather Hardy, a fight that Amanda Serrano won, it's going to reflect on the women's Ring IQ pound-for-pound list. You know, before this weekend's fight, Amanda Serrano was seated in the number 6 spot on the list, behind Daniela Bermudez, behind Jessica Bach, Katie Taylor, Clarissa Shields, Cecilia Brækhus. It being that, you know, last couple of months, last couple of years, Amanda's quality of competition has been largely pedestrian. That yes, she's been a champion in all these different weight classes, but at the end of the day, how many world champions has she actually unseated? Because the vast majority of these titles that she's winning are vacant titles, and at least before this weekend's fight, she only ever actually beat one reigning champion. These things in mind, her complete body of work and the performance that she exhibited this past weekend against a reigning champion, an undefeated champion who she completely dominated. Amanda Serrano will move up from the number 6 spot to the number 4 spot. But that's not the only update, folks. That's not the only move that's being made on the women's Ring IQ pound-for-pound list. Unified featherweight champion Jelena Marjanovic racked up another title defense this past weekend. She was also in action, and her recent activity, the fact that she's being more busy in 2019 than she was in 2018, coupled with what is already one of the most accomplished resumes in the entire sport of women's boxing, you know, this recent activity is enough for her to inch along ahead of Jessica McCaskill to the number 8 spot on the women's Ring IQ pound-for-pound list. Do realize that if Jelena Marjanovic lost some ground the last couple of weeks, months, so on and so forth, it wasn't because of things that her resume was missing, because she's already very accomplished. She's already beaten a bunch of notable fighters. It wasn't necessarily because her body of work wasn't complete enough so much as she wasn't fighting. She only fought once the entire year, last year, you know, whereas this year, okay, she's racked up 2 title defenses of her WBA and WBC featherweight titles, and that's enough for her to inch along. Whereas Jessica McCaskill, she does have yet to defend both those titles. You know, she went from winning the WBC straight into a unification fight, but she hasn't racked up any title defenses of both of those titles yet. So Jelena, already being more accomplished than Jessica, having a more extensive body of work, and also being a unified champion, it's enough to strengthen her argument that she moves ahead of her until such a time as Jessica picks up another notariable scalp. Try and understand how the list works, folks. It looks at the fighter's overall body of work in unison with what they've been doing lately, at what level are they competing right now, and uses that as the unit of measure to rank the fighter. And it just so happens that Jelena's defended both of those titles, the WBC and the WBA, more times this year than Jessica has defended her 2 titles. As it stands, Jessica's only been a champion in 1 weight class to Jelena Marjanovic's 2, and overall, Jelena has been a champion more times in more weight classes, with more world titles, than Jessica has. The only reason Jelena lost any ground in the past was because she wasn't very active, whereas now she's active, she's fighting, she's busy defending those titles and inching along on the list. Jelena has been a champion at both featherweight and super featherweight, and like Jessica, she is a unified champion. She's just done it more times than Jessica. So, you know, you look at the 2 title defenses that she's racked up this year, and it's 5 overall. Jelena has defended those 2 world titles 5 times overall. It's for this reason that she's finally gaining some ground, finally starting to inch along, because as far as a body of work, it's already complete. She could just stand to be a little busier, which is what she's doing. So, Jelena advances to the number 8 spot on the Ring IQ pound-for-pound list. And in regards to Jessica McCaskill, the unified champion in the junior welterweight division, she does have a title defense coming up in what is to be a rematch between herself and Erika Farias. And this rematch is set to be going down on the undercard for Usyk versus Spong, Usyk's debut as a heavyweight. Now, some passing thoughts on this rematch. You know, I had held out hopes that we'd get to see Jessica in action against Cristina Linardatou, the junior welterweight WBO champion at the weight, who's been very vocal that she wants that McCaskill fight, she wants to unify. I had held out hopes that perhaps that would be the next fight we see Jessica in. But all things considered, I'm not complaining about this Farias rematch, and here's why. You know, Jessica McCaskill went up to the 140-pound division and took out what was the consensus number one fighter at that weight. That was Erika Farias. That's when Jessica first won the green belt. She went from that directly into a unification match with what was another champion, Anaí Esther Sanchez, the WBA's 140-pound champion. So when a fighter's on a schedule like that, to where they go from fighting one champion to fighting another champion, I can't be critical if they kind of decide to take their foot off the gas a bit, and maybe that's what this is.
Maybe.
You know, I could see people out there perhaps interpreting this rematch as maybe unnecessary.
Maybe.
That you know, they may not view Erika at this point as being the same threat that Christina is. And you know what? Maybe those people are right. Maybe they are. But after two back-to-back fights with champions, doesn't Jessica McCaskill get the chance to take a breather of sorts? I mean, I'm not even comfortable calling Erika Farias some kind of walk in the park or some lighter touch. But for those people out there who may be of that school of thought, well, given that Jessica's fought two champions back-to-back, you know, can you really complain? I mean, essentially what I'm getting at is I can't be critical of Jessica. Even in a situation to where she's having this rematch, I can't be critical of her because she moved up in weight to fight Erika Farias, because she fought a champion immediately after fighting Erika Farias. There's nothing to complain about. This is a fighter that doesn't give you much to complain about. So even if you want to interpret Erika Farias, a rematch with her, as some kind of a lighter touch, guess what? I think Jessica's earned that much.
Don't you?
At this point. So no complaints from me. Perspective is key here. Jessica McCaskill don't got a lot of fights. I mean, she really don't. She's got a grand total of 9 pro fights. That's it. That's all, folks. 9 pro fights. But in only 9 pro fights, she's unseated 2 reigning champions. So how could you complain about a fighter like that?
You can't.
That even if you're of the opinion that, you know, Erika isn't the same threat that Christina is, even if you want to interpret this as a lighter touch of sorts, hasn't Jessica McCaskill earned that right? I mean, hasn't she?
Yeah.
I don't think that Erika's a lighter touch. I'm just saying that there are people out there who may be saying this in light of the call-outs from Christina. But guess what? After fighting 2 champions back-to-back, I think it's okay for Jessica to have things her way a bit. I mean, she is the only unified champion at the weight, and she did fight 2 reigning champions back-to-back. So I can't complain.
Nah.
No complaints from me.
Nah.
And there's yet another angle of this thing. For those people out there who might have been holding out hope that she fights Christina next, guess what? Christina's busy anyway. Christina's spoken for.
By who?
She's found a dance partner. A dance partner in Katie Taylor. That's right. Katie Taylor, you know, the recent reports in regards to what her next move is going to be indicated that in Katie Taylor's very next fight, she may be moving up from 135 to 140 to start the campaign to become a 2-division champion. And it appears that those reports were right. They were on the money, because in her very next fight, she's squaring off against Cristina Linardatou. And if you've seen Christina in action, if you've had the time to review the footage or seen it here displayed on the relay, you'll know that this is no lighter touch, folks. This is no champion of opportunity. This is a dangerous puncher with genuine in and out capabilities and knockout power. Christina will be a common opponent between Katie and Delphine Persoon. Delphine Persoon, who beat Christina back in 2016. But when I tell you that this fighter bounced back in a big way, do believe me, because she has dished out 3 professional losses to 3 undefeated fighters and become a world champion in the process. She has collected the scalp of Alicia Baumgartner, a highly touted prospect
From the USA.
from right here in the US of A. Knocked out Candy Wyatt, decisioned Deanna Hobbs. Do realize that Christina is a threat to Katie Taylor, a newbie to the weight. I don't think for a second, given Christina's characteristics as a fighter, her in and out game, her concussive power, her speed, her reflexes, I don't think for a second Katie's simply gonna coast to a victory. She's gonna have to go out there and earn one. She's gonna have to pry that belt away from Christina as best as she can, and I think it's gonna take all the tools in the proverbial tool bag. That fight's set to be going down this fall in November. So, in a nutshell, even though I had held out hopes to see Jessica square off against Christina because, both their styles, they mesh. It makes for a fantastic fight regardless of who would win the fight. Even though I had held out hopes for that, apparently, Katie Taylor beat Jessica to the punch, and now she's going to be contesting for what is Christina's title. And in the in-between time, Christina and Erica, they're going to run it back one more time. They're going to do the dance. And I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it because Jessica's earned that right, and I'm okay with it because one way or another, those are both of these fights. They're going to be two great fights. So I look forward to seeing it, and there really is a lot to cover here. More than I can fit into this video, but for right now, these are the fight schedules. These are the fights that are going down. There's a lot of movement going on, and I look forward to seeing it. Moving on. In heavyweight news, those of you that took in this weekend's fight between Michael Hunter and Sergey Kuzmin may have seen that Michael Hunter subsequently called out Alexander Povetkin after decisioning Sergey Kuzmin. He wants to fight that guy. He wants to fight one of the consensus top 10 guys in the heavyweight division. Because if you look around, if you look on BoxRec, if you look on Transnational, ESPN, Ring Magazine, across the board, Povetkin is ranked as a top 10 heavyweight, and this is who Michael Hunter means to fight to make a statement, to make an even bigger splash in the division than what he's already making. Let's talk about it. The fight itself is entirely feasible, and Eddie Hearn actually means to make this fight and schedule it for the undercard of Joshua versus Ruiz 2 in Saudi Arabia. So in terms of whether or not the fight is a real possibility,
it is.
Yeah, it's possible. It can happen. And the only thing that could potentially stifle this thing and derail it is Povetkin himself, whether or not he's receptive to a fight with Michael Hunter. That's the only thing that could really stop this thing from happening, because Eddie Hearn wants it, Michael Hunter wants it, and the question now is, does Povetkin want it? I'll tell you it's a fascinating fight. I'll tell you it's a risky fight for the both of these guys. This will be a big step up in competition for Michael Hunter, but for Povetkin, it's also risky because Povetkin's pushing 40. He's still a good fighter. He's still a top shelf, top tier guy, but at the end of the day, he's no spring chicken. Therein lies the sizzle. Therein lies the intrigue. That Povetkin's got far more experience, a wealth of it, on his side. More than anything Michael Hunter's had the opportunity to amass, but in turn, Michael Hunter does have youth, momentum, and time on his side. You think of the styles of the fighters. We saw Michael Hunter in action this past weekend. And in my post-fight recap video, I talked about how, I don't trust Michael Hunter in the pocket. I'm not sure about his abilities, that he should fight at that range and hook with the hookers of this division, because, what he's got working for him is athleticism, the ability to fight on the outside and be elusive whilst doing so. But in the pocket,
I don't know.
That's Povetkin's sweet spot. And I'm not sure how Michael would fare with Povetkin against a big puncher like Alexander Povetkin at that range. I mean, you fight him there, and you're doing half the work for him, because throughout the fight, that's where he's trying to get to. That's his desired range. That's where he does his best work, landing those compact left hooks and those big overhand rights. The whole time a fight is going on, that's where Povetkin wants you to be. So I'm not sure that Michael Hunter should fight him there, and we just don't know that that's what he is or isn't going to do. What's even more intriguing about this fight is the tale of the tape, the physical dimensions of the fighters, that neither Alexander Povetkin or Michael Hunter, neither one of these two guys is statuesque for the weight. They're actually comparable in size, their physical dimensions.
They're about even.
It's an interesting situation because in the heavyweight division, what these two guys might have become accustomed to, at least so far, is being the smaller guy in the ring. Whereas against each other, that they're going to be more or less evenly matched there. And I'll say that if Michael Hunter is to stand a chance against what is one of the top heavyweights in the entire division, top 10 guy, top tier, top shelf, all that jazz. If he's to stand any kind of chance against Alexander Povetkin, it'll have to be by keeping him out of his sweet spot, fighting a long distance, long range fight, getting full extension on his punches.
From the outside.
And not trading hooks with this guy, because, you don't hook with a hooker. The strategy would have to be to, at least in the early stages of the fight, while Povetkin is fresh and he's very aggressive, looking for an early knockout. In the early stages, the battle plan for Michael Hunter would have to be to box from the outside with this guy and employ that stab to the body, that jab downstairs to the guy's midsection. Take the fight out of that guy before you go deciding to engage him looking for the kill. Deprive him of the opportunity to make it to the inside and trade with you. Make the old guy work for it. Expose his age by maintaining distance, boxing from the outside, and catching him coming through the front door as best as you can. You know, it's a dangerous situation with a guy like Povetkin because he's elusive, even as far as heavyweights go. This is a guy who knows how to angle his head, angle his upper body, to gain safe entry and start throwing big shots, power shots, shots with bad intentions, shots that can put down just about anybody if they land clean. And Michael Hunter, you know, he's not the most experienced guy at the weight, and he's not that experienced as a professional. I mean, he's still making his bones. He's still earning his stripes. This would be a considerable step up in competition from the guys that he's been fighting. He's coming off a big win over Kuzmin, who was undefeated, but all things considered, Kuzmin is not necessarily an insight into a Povetkin. Different fighters, different fighting styles, which will take different strategies to defeat. In all honesty, this is a risky fight for the both of them. Don't get confused. There are risks for Michael Hunter. There are risks for Alexander Povetkin. And it's those risks that kind of give me the impression that, you know what, maybe we don't see this fight. Maybe we don't. You see, Alexander Povetkin, good fighter. No doubt about it. Very experienced. But he's 40 years old. And does a 40-year-old fighter want to take a chance with Michael Hunter? Is that the kind of fight that Povetkin's looking for at this age? I don't think so. I think Povetkin wants a big payday. A bigger payday than Michael Hunter can provide.
And he could give him.
I dare say that a Povetkin versus a Chisora, or the winner of Chisora versus Parker, you know, Povetkin would stand to make more money in a fight like that instead of fighting Michael Hunter. Or Povetkin versus Dillian White. When he comes back, that's another situation where Povetkin would stand to make more money. And I've no doubts that at 40 years old, what Povetkin's looking for, if he's still hanging around, it's paydays. So even though I think this is a great fight, I'm not completely sure it's going to come off. I don't think Povetkin is still hanging around to fight the likes of a Michael Hunter.
It's counterintuitive. Call it what it is. It is counterintuitive for a 40-year-old fighter like Povetkin to run risks with Michael Hunter when there are equally risky yet more lucrative options on the table.
It's the truth.
Granted that the biggest names at the weight, your Joshua, your Ruiz, your Wilder, your Fury, those four names, they may be booked up for the next 2 fights. They might be. But in the in-between time, you've got your Dillian Whites, your Chisoras, your Parkers, and a fight with any one of those guys would bring you more money than a fight with Michael Hunter. So even though I think this is a great fight, in all honesty, I'm not holding my breath. I don't think it's going to come off. If it does, great. If I'm wrong, great. But in all honesty, Povetkin's people have got to be thinking, who the fuck is Michael Hunter, and why should we fight him?